Hey guys, what's up? And today I'm gonna do a review on Better Call Saul Season 2, continuing my Better Call Saul review series. Actually, this is going to be the last Better Call Saul review until Season 4 comes out. Anyway, Jimmy McGill was a lawyer, a really silly but funny lawyer full of cheap tricks up his sleeves. But because of something that happened, he quit being a lawyer last season. And basically, I'm also gonna do a little recap. So last season we have Tuco and Nacho. So Tuco is this gangster's head apparently, and Nacho is working for Tuco. And then we also have Jimmy McGill that I just mentioned, and his girlfriend is called Kim, and they both originally worked at Hamlin McGill, a law firm that is created by Jimmy's friend Howard Hamlin and Jimmy's brother Chuck McGill. But things happened and Jimmy left the law firm, and now he is nowhere to go. He has nowhere to go. And so basically we have the Sandpiper's case that left off last season, and basically it is a case about an elderly's residence in a facility that has overcharged bills. And at first Jimmy McGill wanted to do the Sandpiper case, but at the end Howard Hamlin and Chuck took it for Hamlin McGill. So Jimmy was really pissed off, and it ended off like that. So without further ado, let's start off with first episode, which is titled Switch. It's a bit boring, to be honest. It is actually quite boring because it's very slow, but it is actually a pretty nice start to season 2. Just like Breaking Bad, the first scene of season 2 is actually the last scene of season 1, just with a bit more to it. And there are also other Breaking Bad related things that appeared on the episode, especially the returning of, not gonna spoil it, but you know who. If you've watched the episode, you know who had returned. And I can also tell you about Zafira Añejo. Remember the tequila in Breaking Bad season 4 episode 10, Salute? Yep, it's back. Genius. But still, this episode is really a bit boring. I really like the teaser, though. I really like the teaser before the episode title sequence. I really do. We get to learn more about Jimmy's future life, and it also has humor in it. But, so far so good. And on the episode, Jimmy McGill actually went into the David and Main's law firm and accepted the job offer, actually. So, it provides a new storyline that I, at first, expected to be somewhat interesting, but it's not so interesting. In fact, it's as realistic as it sounds. I like how the TV show depicts reality. It's really accurate because it's not that exciting, to be honest. Well, anyway, moving on to episode 2, Cobbler. What the hell? So, Mr. Warmold, aka the really lame-ass drug dealer that hired Mike as bodyguard last season, that nerd who sucks at being a criminal, who bought that stupid car last season, and then Nacho was checking on the car, and he also learned his address and ripped him off. Then Mr. Warmold called the cops, and Mike wanted Jimmy's help to help Mr. Warmold to get away. And it turned out really awkwardly, strangely, and comedically. And it is also purely genius, but also really... It's really worth a laugh, though. It really is. And I also love how the show introduces Chuck in a scene. Jimmy was having a meeting in Hamlin McGill, and suddenly Howard called everyone to put away their phones and electronics, and Jimmy knew what's up. Chuck is coming. So if you don't know, Chuck is allergic to electronics. And the tension builds because of all these, put away all your electronics, put away all your phones. The tension and the suspense builds. So, yeah, it is implying that Chuck is coming. So that is simply brilliant. So yeah, other than that, not much progress has been made on the episode. So I really expect more from Chuck and Jimmy because now all the storylines feel a bit thin and dry. They need a little tweaking. So I'm expecting much more from episode 3, Ama Rio. So Jimmy wanted to continue with the Sandpiper case by receiving calls from the elders who's living under the Sandpiper crossing facility. Also, there were gunshots heard near Stacy's place. Stacy, if you don't know, is Mike's son's wife. Anyway, Mike wanted to find out why were there a bunch of gunshots, so he needed to go to Stacy's place and get a temporary job over there, and he got a bodyguard job. So more interesting things. This episode is more dramatic and heavier than the last 2 episodes. It has suspense, and we see Jimmy getting into more and more trouble. And it promises us with a new plot line and storyline concerning Mike, but it's quite boring and slow-paced, but still, it's a slow burner, which means after having a lot of patience and waiting, you'll get your reward. So, if you don't know that, Jimmy has an ad, and he aired the ad without his boss's consent. His boss is Cliff Maine from David and Maine's. And, yeah, I really hope that Jimmy wouldn't lose his job because of this. So, fingers crossed that nothing bad is going to happen. Also, Mike meet Nacho again. And this is quite interesting, and I want to see more. Then the story progresses on to episode 4, Gloves Off, which is the best episode of the season so far. Oh my gosh. Jimmy running into more trouble and Mike making an important decision. Teaser of the episode is stunning and brilliant. We didn't know what happened to Mike until we get a closer look at Mike, and wow, he is beaten up so bad. And also, at first the episode is still about the smart and funny Jimmy versus the world. You know, Jimmy ran into trouble, shit went down, and it's bad. David and Maine was bad, and Chuck was mad, Howard was mad, Kim was also in trouble because of this. Wow. But the last scene was even more mind-blowing because it's full of surprises and I enjoyed it a lot. Mike was brilliant and Tuco was back, and also another appearance of a, more like reappearance of a Breaking Bad character. It's brutal, it's intense, but it still has a sense of humor. I love it. And you know what? I'm gonna give a spoiler alert. So yeah. Last episode, Nacho told Mike that, you know, Tuco had to go. The same way that Walt told Jesse that Gus had to go. So anyway, Nacho told Mike that Tuco had to go, and Mike came up with a very, very smart plan to frame Tuco. At the end, Tuco and Mike actually had a fight, but Mike didn't really fight. It's more like Tuco beating up Mike. And then the cops come, because Mike called the cops earlier. So, perfect timing, really genius. Mike and Jimmy should really work together because they actually do in Breaking Bad. Anyway, next is episode 5, Rebecca. A female name ending with an A, like Felina. I don't know why, but yeah, a small piece of trivia. So, will this episode be a dramatic episode? Not really. It's actually quite a boring and forgettable episode. It's obviously a transitional episode and arguably a filler, but yet it's still necessary for this episode to happen. So this time, Jimmy was babysat by Erin, and Kim was trying to save herself by bringing new clients in so that Howard would promote her again. And also there's a montage about Kim calling people, her numerous phone calls. I actually enjoyed the montage. And the last scene, another from Breaking Bad, also had an appearance. And surprise, surprise. Overall, it's a neat and acceptable episode. It's not super bad, but still, it's kind of underwhelming, and it also has a lot of run-of-the-mill and predictable moments that you would just sit through and be like, okay, yeah. Well, moving on to episode 6, Bali Hai Ye, another episode title with an apostrophe and two eyes like two Hajale. I don't know why I compare episode titles with episode titles all the time. What am I even doing? Anyway, this time we have Kim as a lawyer working on the Sandpiper case. Jimmy continuing to do what he does best, and Mike and his affairs with the infamous cartel, because at first Mike was after Tuco, but now Mike was after the entire cartel, which is insane, but go for it, Mike. I really like that Breaking Bad approaches the cartel in Walt's perspective, while Better Call Saul approaches the cartel in Mike's perspective. And then we also see more characters that are from Breaking Bad. It's a really creepy appearance for those characters, but it's also extremely satisfying to see them. Yep, it's a them. Anyway, I'm looking forward for more Jimmy working out his genius and Mike's problems and how they meet each other. And yeah, I also really love how the tension and the suspense builds in this episode. So yes, I'm expecting some more drama. Last episode I demanded more scenes from Jimmy. Then I got it. Really nice. This is episode 7, Inflatable. So Jimmy and Kim was struggling if they should quit their jobs or not, because wow, their jobs are starting to be going terribly. And that's basically the entire episode. But I still enjoy every bit of detail in the episode. So I love the montage where Jimmy looked at an inflatable thing and he was really inspired by how happy and optimistic the inflatable was. I guess that's how I interpret that scene. So Jimmy starts to wear new colorful clothes and doing ridiculous things at David and Maine's office. Meanwhile, Kim had an offer from Schweiker and Coakley, another law firm, so she either stays in HHM or go to a new law firm. And then Jimmy had this crazy idea of creating a law firm of his own with Kim. So it's a lot of decision making and struggling with them, but it's also going to an interesting direction that I would probably not think about at first when I watched the show. Jimmy and Kim really did some ridiculous things in this episode, and now I'm more worried about them than usually in the show. Then it's episode 8, Fifi. The teaser is really good. It's a really complicated long take with some cool music at the background. But I don't see the point of that at all when I was watching the scene. But man, it's a really nice long take. I love long takes. After the Mr. Robot episode last year, yeah, I love long takes. Anyway, the story is basically Kim trying to get Mesa Verde, another client, to herself and not HHM. Meanwhile, Jimmy used cool tricks to help Kim. And Jimmy's tricks are basically pranks with a bigger damage. Then Mike was spying the cartel the whole time and building something. I'm excited to see what Mike's gonna do, but I guess it's gonna be for the next episode. All this law and legal trouble of getting and losing clients is not that interesting, to be honest. We don't really care about that, but at the same time we care about the characters of Jimmy and Kim, so there's that. So however, I still think that the whole losing and getting clients storyline is starting to get a little drab and forgettable, but still I feel like this show has a lot of potential in it. And this episode, it has a neat story and a couple of quite entertaining scenes. Moving on to episode 9, Nailed, a dramatic point in the Better Call Saul timeline. I mean, everyone's anticipating for this episode, right? So basically, Jimmy messed with Chuck's files because Jimmy wanted to Kim have the Mesa Verde case. And then there's Mike, who is planning on putting the cops on the cartel. Two very insane storylines on one very climactic episode. And in this episode, it's very, very dramatic. Oh my gosh. And again, I have to say it again, but the teaser is brilliant. Mike finds out about a truck and stole the money from a truck, hoping it would get the cops' attention and let them trace back to the cartel, but it didn't really work. Both Jimmy and Chuck was in danger, and I also have to compliment the ending. Oh my gosh. So, I'm going to give a spoiler alert. So basically, Chuck already knew that Jimmy messed with his files, and it's really hilarious at first, but now that Chuck knew, the suspense levels are extremely high, and basically Chuck and Ernesto were trying their best to find out the truth, to find out if Jimmy actually messed with his files, and to find all the evidence so that they can actually sue Jimmy for that. So I kind of root for Jimmy, although I know Chuck was right, doing the right thing. Just like I root for Walt, but I know Skyler was right. You know, dealing meth, tempering with files, not a really good idea. But still, for Jimmy's character, I root for Jimmy. So that's why while watching the episode, I kinda don't want people to know what Jimmy actually did, which is really suspenseful, because, man, Jimmy is on the verge of getting exposed. Oh my gosh. And, the ending scene. The ending scene is insane. So basically, Chuck and so at first, earlier in the episode, Jimmy went to a shop where it's like a printing shop, and he basically used Chuck's files to print out another copy and just copy and paste words manually. So, yeah, he went to the shop, and he told the shop, the guy in the counter, to shut up about him. And then Chuck and Ernesto came to the shop and asked the guy in the counter if Jimmy had been there, and that's really suspenseful. Jimmy bribed the counter guy already, and then Chuck and Ernesto came, and wow, it's a decision of a lifetime, isn't it? But at the end, the counter guy didn't admit that, you know, Jimmy was there, so Chuck and Ernesto didn't get what they want. More like Chuck didn't get what they want. Ernesto low-key wants to help Jimmy. But yeah, wow. Wow, and then all of a sudden, because of all the lights and electronics, Chuck just fainted. Chuck just passed out. And, you know, they could have just made Chuck, and just fainted. But instead, suddenly we have all these buzzes, static sounds, and all these flashes of lights. We are actually in Chuck's body. We're actually feeling what Chuck was feeling for a moment there. And when Chuck passed out, he bumped his head into the counter, boom, and then fell into the ground. And wow, that escalated quickly. Props to the director, whoever directed this. Probably Vince Gilligan, but man, this is a great episode. Suspense and surprises. Last episode, also the season finale of season 2, is titled Click with a K in the beginning. What a cool episode title. Anyway, it's a dramatic and serious episode of Better Call Saul, and it also has a nice twist at the end. It is an excellent episode and a great way to end a season. But, I can't talk about this episode without giving a spoiler alert. Last episode, Jimmy messed with Chuck's Mesa Verde files and caused HHM to lose the case and the client, damaging Chuck's reputation. And Chuck suspected Jimmy of messing. Meth? Have I watched too much Breaking Bad? Chuck suspected that Jimmy messed with his files. And Jimmy suspected, not Jimmy! Why did I always say the word Jimmy? Chuck! And Chuck suspected Jimmy of messing with his files, and which he is right about. And he and Ernesto started looking around, trying to find proof that Jimmy committed a felony. Wow, why am I pronouncing words so hard? Anyway, unfortunately, Chuck passed out from all the electronics that he is allergic to, so it's a really intense first scenes after the teaser. We see Chuck going through a lot in the hospital. On the other hand, we have Mike, who still wanna mess with the cartel and put the cops on Hector. So, it would make sense if Mike shot Hector's leg, because he's in a wheelchair, right? I'm not sure. Or maybe it's another thing. Maybe Hector's wheelchair is from another story. It's just a theory. Maybe Mike didn't shoot his leg. I don't know. But while watching this episode, I really thought that Mike was gonna actually shoot Hector's legs and make him sit on a wheelchair. Oh, the ending. Oh my gosh. The moment when Chuck said, "You realize you're confessing a felony, right?" I just... Wait, did Chuck record it, the whole conversation? And he did. And I kind of felt proud of myself that I figured it out. But, wow, I feel really bad for Jimmy. So basically, Jimmy told Chuck and confessed to Chuck that he actually messed with his files. And Chuck pretended to be like, okay, whatever. But turns out Chuck was recording it. So, wow. Rest in peace. At last, Better Call Saul Season 2 is another light-hearted, fun, comedic dramatic TV season from Vince Gilligan and Peter Gould. Good acting performances from Bob Odenkirk and Jonathan Banks and Michael McKean, who plays Chuck. But however, it's not as entertaining as Season 1, because this season deals more with law and law firms, which I don't think the audience care that much. And the pace is slower than last season. There are more slow burners, so the scenes are slightly more boring, to be honest. As always, I like how sleazy, dirty, and fun the style of the show is, and how it perfectly depicts the very cheap American lifestyle. There's this very interesting theory where if you rearrange all the first words in the episode titles of Better Call Saul Season 2, you get Fring's back, which means Gus Fring might return. But I was hoping that this Easter egg would do more. Like, if we rearrange all the storylines in the episodes, we would have a completely new storyline. But nonetheless, that is a really sweet Easter egg. Like that Easter egg they did with Breaking Bad Season 2. 737 down over ABQ. Yeah. Better Call Saul Season 2. It's a colorful, it's a vibrant TV show, and we see Jimmy and Mike getting into more trouble, and sometimes getting out of it, sometimes paying for it. And it's different how they handled it, and it's really interesting to watch them getting into trouble and dealing with it. The worst is Episode 5, Rebecca, and the best is Episode 9, Nailed. I'm saying this season is a season worth watching, and I'm giving it an 8 out of 10. Yeah, it's the lowest rated TV season in my channel so far, but it's still very good, because I usually don't review bad TV seasons and TV shows, so that's why all the ratings seem so high. Anyway, What are your opinions on Better Call Saul Season 2? From 1 to 10, how much would you rate it? Like if you like it, and subscribe if you want more.